Robin and Superboy, the greatest team of kids ever, and it's the greatest book ever. I love it. It's time to do the first storyline. Kid Amazo. If you're wondering where you are on the internet, that would be the Comicstorian Complete Story series, where we take your favorite trade paperbacks, or in this case, my favorite trade paperbacks, and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand exactly what happened in that storyline, turning it into an epic motion movie almost. While we recap the events, tell you our opinions on the whole thing, throw in some music, we put in some weird voices, and sometimes I just feel very crazy, and these intros really not lining up at all. But either way, I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget, all alterations to those panels, text, and images that we make, they are because they are owned by their respective companies. We don't own the artwork. Alright guys, let's begin. Robin and Superboy! As the super family, the Duffys, sit at their home watching TV, Reggie asks his brother Archie if he can have some of his popcorn. Archie says no, he already finished his share, but as Reggie reaches and takes some anyway, Archie tells him sure, take the whole thing. Reggie says, man, I'm sure cold and uncomfortable. And both his mother and his sister Sarah get up to give him a blanket and a pillow. And after a few moments, Reggie gets up telling them, guys are the best. How about a group hug? With no one getting up right away, Reggie shouts, group hug! So everyone jumps up and huddles together. And he says, we're the closest family ever. Meanwhile, over in Hamilton County, little Jonathan Kent yawns as he walks to the bus stop in the snow. The bus pulls up and John sees an old man and he asks, where's our regular driver? The old man says that Pat is sick, so he's filling in. John heads inside and he sits down with his friend Kathy and they talk about the book report that they had the other night when John hears some of the other kids laughing as they pick on another student. John gets up and Kathy whispers, don't get involved. And he tells her, I cannot sit here and do nothing. John tells the bullies to just stop it and the bullies ask, who are you supposed to be, Superman? And then they start shooting him with spitballs. But before John can do anything, the bus driver shouts for everyone to knock it off and return to their seats, which John quietly does. After school, John tells Kathy and the others that he has a plan. They're gonna have a snowball fight to show those bullies. As soon as the first snowball is thrown, all of the kids join in pelting each other and the bullies decide that it's time to up their game. One of the bullies throws a snowball hitting Alan in the head, but everyone sees that there was a rock in it, causing Alan to bleed. The other bullies start to make more snowballs with rocks and John takes off his glasses to blast it, but then he sighs, putting his glasses back on. His father told him not to use his powers out in public. The bullies get ready to throw it again and they notice a giant shadow forming over them. And a giant snowball falls out of the sky, crashing on them. John looks up to see the substitute bus driver. While all of the kids head back to the bus, John runs around the corner to see the bus driver is standing there and he asks, what are you doing at my school? Damian Wayne pulls the mask off, stating, I was bored. Really, just wanted to see how the other half lives. John tells him, you don't have classes? And Damian tells him, no, I'm homeschooled, remember this? As Damian holds up another mask, John asks, how can he fake being a substitute teacher? Later that night at the Kent household, John sits with Clark and Lois playing cards, telling them what happened today at school with Alan. And Clark and Lois tell him that they're proud of him for standing up for what was right. But as they do, Lois says that by the way, she has 3 aces, so she wins. Clark's communicator goes off and John asks, how does she do that all the time? Clark answers the communicator and quickly changes, telling everyone, there's a league thing. And he kisses everyone goodbye. He flies off and Lois tells John that it's time for him to get to bed anyway. As John gets ready and starts to crawl into bed, he begins to hear a voice calling out, did you remember to floss, Johnny boy? John jumps up with his heat vision and he asks Damian if he's crazy. He could have totally just blasted him! After almost getting caught by Lois, Damian jumps inside and tells him, look, since our fathers are out, I decided to let you join me in an investigation. John asks, is that so, huh? Damian goes on, there's been an assorted amount of break-ins and hacking attempts over at the LexCorp facilities. So what is your name? John says John, and he says, you should already know that. And Damian says, no, it's Superboy. Which means, forget about going to bed on time. Let's go get ready to be super. A short while later, over in Metropolis, Damian swings to the next building as John leaps, and Damian tells him, you still can't fly, can ya? As they both reach their target, Damian tells him, there it is, LexCorp, let's hurry. The boys quickly hurry over and they begin scaling the building, but before they can get too high, a voice tells them, it's horrible weather for breaking and entering. They both turn back, and Lex Luthor asks, is there something I can help you with? And John nervously says, hi? The boys hang on the outside of the building and John says, oh God, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Damian says, no, this is perfect. Lex asks, what are you doing here? It's a school night. Shouldn't you be in bed? I want you off of my building now. Damian tells him, sure. And then he grabs John's leg, pulling him off. As John falls, Damian yells out, by the way, the kid can't fly. Lex snaps the cable that Damian is on and he tells him that he suggests holding on then because they're going for a ride. Damian quickly fires another hook while Lex rushes down to catch Jon. Before hitting the ground, Lex tells Jon that you have a great deal of explaining to do, so you better start by telling me who you are. Jon kicks back, knocking Lex away, telling him, "We're nobody, okay? Nobody!" As Jon drops to the ground, he takes off running down the alleyway, and Lex shouts for him to get back here. Lex flies by grabbing Jon, and Jon says, "Look, we're just a couple of stupid kids. This is all a prank, all right?" And Lex tells Jon, "If that's the case, why is your friend planting explosives in my lab?" And Jon asks him, "What are you talking about?" But before he can even finish, Lex rockets back into the lab and they both see Damian planting explosives. Lex fires a blast, destroying the bomb, and he asks, "Was that really your plan? Because now is where you tell me why you're trying to blow up my lab." Damian smiles, telling him, "I'm giving you to the count of 5. And then the entire room starts to beep with many more explosives. Lex shouts, "Stop!" And Damian runs through, sliding between Lex's legs, and he tells Jon, we're leaving. And the two escape back outside, where Damian throws Jon onto a rooftop, telling him that Lex should have figured out by now that those really weren't explosives. Once Damian lands, he begins tapping away on his tablet, and he tells Jon, "I have made a terrific distraction." Jon runs over, grabbing Damian, telling him, "You just need to leave me alone. I should have never let my father start that training with you." And Jon goes on, "You think you're such a super detective? Lex caught us instantly. You couldn't even make a halfway decent Batman." Damian holds up his tablet and he says, "It's downloading LexCorp security logs." And then he yawns, "Oh, but you're right, I'm better." A little while later, after getting some snacks, Damian holds up the tablet, telling him, "I got it, just watch." And on the screen, an image of Reggie pops up and it shows him working on an android, and after doing whatever it is to it, the feed cuts out. Damian then tosses the tablet, telling them, "It's gonna take me a week or so to go through that data, but I will get to the bottom of whatever is going on." And Jon tells him, "You could do that, or you could just watch it in super speed." Jon holds back up the tablet, telling him that the kid broke in was seen in 4 places at the same time. Damian snaps back the tablet, telling him, "So he's cloning himself." And Jon walks off, telling him, "You should just get your Teen Titan friends to help. You really don't have weeks to figure out who that kid is." Seconds later, Damian says that the kid's name is Reggie. He may not have super eyes, but he's got Batman's facial recognition database, so there's no going home yet. The two speed off on Damian's bike, and Damian explains that Reggie and his entire family were powered up by the Amazo virus. The Amazo virus was a synthetic plague created by Lex using the power-stealing android Amazo. Only 5% of the people affected with the virus were able to keep their powers, and in this case, the entire family did. Once the two sneak into a warehouse, Jon says they should probably call in their dads, and Damian tells him, "No! We need to do this for ourselves." While Damian starts looking through some of the papers in the room, Damian mentions that there's an article that says that the family disappeared after a fight with each other. Jon looks around and says, "Oh my god!" And he sees the dead family members. He shouts, "I'm calling my dad!" And Damian grabs him, telling him, "This is my case, so we're going to." But Jon smacks him into a window, telling him, "You're crazy! People are dead!" And he leaps out of the warehouse. Damian just stares at him leaving and tells him, "Fine, be a crybaby! Leave! I got work to do." While Damian continues the investigation, he sees that there's someone missing and out in the woods. Jon finds that someone, and as they both continue their work, the images of their fathers appear behind them. Moments later, the two boys are fighting against their father's counterparts, and as they fight, they begin to notice that there's no way that this is their fathers. It has to be androids. Jon readies himself to blow up the Batman bot, and Damian's body comes crashing into him. He tells him, "Nice catch. I was thrown from the warehouse by a bucket of bolts dressed as the world's worst superhero." Damian then says, "I should have known that you didn't run off like a baby." And Jon shouts, "I wasn't scared! Plus, that rusty version of your dad is attacking me!" The boys begin to argue and bicker again, shoving each other and wrestling to the ground. As the robots of Batman and Superman watch, they then hear Jon ask, "Now?" And they both jump up out of the dust shouting, "Now!" As they both play into the daddy bots, the bots grab them and begin to crush their heads, and another voice shouts, "Drop." Jon says, "That's right! Forgot to mention I found a girl." Sarah stands up, pointing to the ground, and she says, "I said drop." The bots release the boys, and then they fall to the ground. Damian tells Sarah that, "You better have some answers for me." And Jon tells her, "Just ignore the little guy. What's going on over here?" Sarah tells them that there will be more. They need to get out of here. So Jon picks Sarah up and puts her on his back. And Damian leads the group back to his bike, stating, "Of course we're gonna trust a strange girl immediately." Jon asks her, "How did she know what to do back there?" And Sarah tells him that she can control machines. It was her gift from the Amazo virus. Damian goes on explaining that Amazo was an old enemy of the Justice League. He's an android programmed with the artificial versions of the League's various superpowers. Last year, Lex released a synthetic version of the programming as a human virus. Thousands were exposed and provided powers before the deadly side effect kicked in. Sarah says that out of the 3% that lived, her and her family survived. So they used their powers to help out with the town, and her brother Reggie, well, he was never nice. He used his power and he multiplied himself, and it also split his mind. Around that time was when Reggie learned that there was an Amazo armor stored up at LexCorp, and after stealing it, he was able to split himself into these superpowered Amazo creatures. Each duplicate is able to mimic a superpower that they've been exposed to, and as the group goes on, the bots they fought begin to change and reconstruct themselves into the boys, and it begins to replicate them. Up ahead, the three reach the bike, and Jon says they need to call in the Justice League, and Damian tells them, no, we can do this. Jon tries to say that the Amazo virus is way stronger than them, and Damian pushes Jon back, telling him, stronger than you maybe, but I'm the world's greatest hero, and this girl needs my help. Jon says, whatever, I'm calling the League, and Damian uses his grappling hook to stop him, so Jon shouts, all right, Dork Knight, I'm calling your dad. Damian kicks Jon down, telling him, like hell you are, and the two go back to fighting at each other's throats. Sarah grabs her head, stating that she can feel him retaking control, but while the boys argue, there's an explosion next to them, and they look back at the wreckage to see that that was where the bike was, and Sarah is now standing there with red eyes, and Jon asks, what's happening? Sarah's voice begins to change, and Reggie tells them, you've escaped my prison. This girl was able to get outside, but now I'm in control again. Sarah's voice changes back as she shouts, it's my brother! He's been creating copies of the family and killing them over and over again. Reggie's voice comes back through and he says, and now it's time to come home. And Sarah's body begins to melt. Just then the Damian and Jon bots jump out. Damian says, all right, I'll admit it. Maybe in retrospect, we should have called in our fathers. Jon says, thanks, that's nice to hear. And Damian clarifies, maybe we should have. As Jon holds on to Sarah, Sarah throws out her arm shouting, now! And the bots begin to explode. She shouts to them to hurry and go find the real versions of them. She'll buy them some time. As the two begin to run, more bots begin to chase after them, and Jon says, so I saved a girl who was really a superpowered robot who was actually on the inside a real girl on the inside of that. And Damian tells him, those super senses are sure coming in handy, aren't they? Damian jumps grabbing a tree and he swings back, cutting off one of the Jon bots' heads. And Jon grabs him, telling him, we really don't have time for this. Damian jumps on Jon's back and they start to rewire some of the circuitry. And after a few moments, he says, I got it. And he tosses the head and tells Jon to stop. We're done running. It's time for Robin and Superboy to make a stand! As the two get to work fighting back, ripping the bots apart, they all start to gang up on them, and Damian shouts, we just gotta hold out for! And Jon tells him, hang on! And as he goes to help Damian, he too is pulled down into the mass of bots. Later, Damian and Jon hang upside down, and Damian says that he has to ask, Superboy, do you have any powers? And Jon tells him, just shut up. As the two argue again, the voice then tells them, there's so much anger. I'm going to assume that you have to be family. Reggie floats out wearing the Amazo armor, telling them, family really sucks, right? And Damian shouts, we are not related. Jon tells him, we should have just let Mr. Luthor handle this. It was his tech after all. And Reggie shouts, like hell it is. The Amazo virus is in my blood. The armor was stolen. The armor enhances my abilities, so I've never been alone. And I could be like how real families should be. As the bots begin to drag in the other Duffy family members, Reggie goes on stating that all they wanted to do was use their powers for everyone but themselves. But now they're here, sedated and depowered, and I've made them watch as I killed their copies over and over. However, the family's really starting to get on my nerves, and it's time to make the dream a reality. Reggie leans down to Sarah, telling her that his little sister has always had a hard time following rules. Sarah leans up, spitting on Reggie's mask, and Reggie continues telling her that I was going to be patient, strike the Justice League down when they were in disarray, but you have forced my hand, and once I absorb all of their powers, the Amazo family will be unstoppable. Jon tries to struggle out of the chain, shouting, we gotta do something, and Damian stops her, telling him, just wait, we're gonna be fine. I can see the future. And in 3, 2, 1, Luthor! Lex Luthor crashes into the building, shouting to Reggie, give me back my armor. Jon asks, how? And Damian says, I did it when I was tinkering with the bot's head. There's so much to teach you. Lex freezes the boys, telling them that he assumes that they're the ones who brought him here. And Damian says, yeah, the guy that stole your armor plans to take over the world. Lex grabs 2 of the bots by their heads, crushing them, telling them, it won't be this world, I can assure you of that. Reggie runs by hitting Damian, and Damian shouts to Lex, Reggie's the target, so handle him. Lex walks back over, asking, who the hell do you think you are to command Superman? Reggie goes back in to attack again, but Damian grabs Reggie by the arm and flips him onto his back, telling him, I'm Robin, Batman's better half. The two quickly run over to the Duffys, and he grabs them and heads out. But after getting away from the hideout, Damian and Jon set the Duffys down, and Damian tells Sarah that she's the only one who could do this. Sarah says that she knows. She just needs there to be one target, not 100. Jon peeks over the rock, stating, looks like the coast is clear, and then a Jon bot pops up. He blows him away, telling him, I guess my super breath works. Sometimes. Once the family is safe, Damian and Jon head back to the hideout, and Reggie asks if they really want to be playing. Jon asks him, are you gonna make another army of you? And Damian scoffs, telling him, you really gotta grow a pair. The liquid metal begins to form and take shape, and just as Reggie shouts it's over for them, he feels a sudden pain. He asks what's happening, and Damian shouts, the pain you're feeling is your flesh being ripped apart by your family. Sarah begins to pull at the machine and begins to rip the exoskeleton off of Reggie, severing the bond. The exoskeleton skitters towards towards Jon, and Lex stomps on it, telling them both, "That's enough. I'm calling the authorities." He looks down at Damian and Jon and he tells them, "As far as I'm concerned, you're both delinquents. So if you want to throw yourselves in my mercy, you have 3 minutes." Sarah looks at Reggie and says, "You were never a nice brother, but you were never like this." Lex tells her it's because of the constant splitting of his mind, but with her cooperation, he should be able to get the entire family back on their feet. He can put her in a real position to be a heroic youth, unlike the 2 young boys who, but as he looks back, he sees Damian and Jon are gone, and quietly says, "Damn it." Off in the distance, Damian says that leaving was a wise decision, and Jon tells him just to shut up. A short while later, the boys land at the Kent home, and Damian says, "What about Gotham?" And Jon shouts, "Find your own way home!" So Damian says that his cycle was destroyed in the battle. You know, the one where we just saved a family. Whatever, I'll just call a new one. Jon shushes him, telling him, "Whatever, next time you need a partner, call someone else, because I..." But before he could finish, a voice from Jon's window says, "Ahem." Inside, Lois shouts, "You better start talking, and quick." And Alfred folds his arms, saying, "Yes, I believe ditto is the operative word." And that concludes the first story arc for the Super Sons. It's amazing. It's awesome. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious and fun and a great adventure. And just one of my favorite books coming out of DC Rebirth right now. To steal a line from Rob, it's the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on your favorite comic books, from old to new to old other stuff. I'm rambling now. Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.